Many Christian parents worry about how to best pass on the faith to their children. Sadly, statistics suggest they should. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stonestreet. This is Breakpoint. Back in 2020, the Cultural Research Center at Arizona Christian University found that just 2% of millennials, a generation that is now well into adulthood, have what can be called a biblical worldview. And that's the lowest of any generation since surveys began. Lifeway Research also reports that 2/3 of those who attend youth group as a teenager will drop out of the church as adults. A significant aspect of the battle for the hearts and minds of the next generation has to do with ideas, helping students think correctly about life in the world, much less God in themselves, would be hard enough if they weren't facing such strong cultural headwinds. But they are. And the bad ideas that float around our culture are like viruses. They have the ability to spread from the mind to the heart, from person to person, even infecting entire populations. And many young people today leave the faith simply because they lack any natural immune defenses against the bad ideas of our culture. Christian parents must not only present truth to their kids, they have to find ways to immunize them against lies. To do that, we need to know which teaching methods work and which ones don't. Dr. Jeff Myers of Summit Ministries points to the work of a Yale psychology professor from the 1950s. Dr. William McGuire suggested that bad ideas behave like viruses. Specifically, the more exposure that one has to bad ideas in a controlled setting, the less likely they are to fall for those ideas later. McGuire performed a series of experiments, which would be quite controversial today, in which he tried to convince subjects of a lie. Specifically, that brushing their teeth was actually bad for them despite what they had heard. Those that were given no preparation before hearing this lie were easily convinced to stop brushing. Those who were warned against the specific bad argument they'd hear, well, they were harder to deceive. No real surprise there. What was surprising in all these studies were the groups that were the easiest and the hardest to dupe. The group that was most vulnerable to falsehoods was not the one with zero preparation, but the one that had the truth reinforced before hearing the lie. In other words, the subjects that were most easily deceived were told things like, well, you know brushing your teeth is good for you, right? You've heard this your whole life. You've been taught this since you were little. Trust us. Turns out that group, when they heard a set of counter arguments they didn't know existed, they felt deceived. Now, the least vulnerable group were those who had not only been warned against a bad argument they might hear, they were given a response to that bad argument. And, don't miss this, they were warned that they might face additional bad arguments, so they needed to be on their toes, they needed to be aware, vigilant, and ready. Now, what does this experiment teach us? Well, for one thing, it teaches us that the method that many Christian parents and churches are using to pass on the faith, reinforcing without taking seriously any counter ideas, that's the most doomed to fail. In fact, it can leave young people more vulnerable to the lies. These experiments also teach us that we don't have to give kids all the answers, but they do need to be aware and ready to think for themselves. And that requires that they have a framework, some kind of pattern of responding to bad ideas thoughtfully and confidently. And that's exactly what Summit Ministries has been doing with students for decades, immunizing them against bad ideas, preparing them to face the challenges to their faith. And the results are measurable and impressive. An independent 2020 survey of Summit Ministries alumni showed that just 40% felt like they were able to defend their faith against challenges before attending a Summit conference. After attending, that number skyrocketed to 90%. Before Summit, only 44% claimed a strong commitment to Christianity. Afterward, 77% did. And almost 97% of Summit alumni indicate that they're currently attending a church that holds to the truth of the Bible. Now, Chuck Colson called Summit Ministries the gold standard for training young adults in Christian worldview. I agree. In fact, I've personally witnessed this. I've been part of the transformation that happens at Summit. Each 2-week student conference this summer, held at Covenant College in Georgia or at the Summit headquarters in Manitou Springs, Colorado, shapes a robust biblical worldview in young people. and also prepares them for the divisive topics such as abortion, doubt, deconstruction, evolution, gender identity, the existence of God, the truthfulness of the Bible, sexuality, and so much more. If you know a student who needs to attend a Summit conference this summer, you can get a $100 discount off registration by using the offer code Breakpoint22. You can also get $200 off for registering before March 31st for any of this summer's Summit student conferences. Now look, the numbers speak for themselves. Passing on a Christian worldview to our kids requires more than just telling them the truth. It requires us to help them love the truth and to gain the kind of spiritual immunity they need against infectious bad ideas. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stonestreet with Breakpoint.